Welcome to my channel, Bible Verse Breakdown. I'm Ewaenruwa Nomaren, and today we're going to be looking at an extremely significant verse in the scriptures, which is Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2, where Isaiah the prophet stated, "And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow onto it." So when Isaiah the prophet had said the mountain of the Lord's house, it's God's government, which involves Jesus Christ, the king of God's government, and the apostles, which are like the judges. The Bible makes it clear that Jesus Christ is the king who God has appointed to rule this world in the midst of his enemies. He once told them, "Sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool," in Psalm chapter 110 verse 1. And then he went on to tell him how he was going to rule in the midst of his enemies. Meaning that unlike what many people think that, oh, Jesus Christ is going to come as king when the whole world is being subdued. No, Jesus Christ is going to be the one to subdue everything that's going on in the world so that righteousness can prevail, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 from verses 24 to 28. Verse 28 being one of our previous verse breakdowns. So you can watch that for more details on how Jesus Christ is going to subdue everything that is against righteousness in this world. But we need to know that the apostles also rule with Jesus Christ. They are the cabinet members, the body members, according to Zechariah chapter 8, verse 23. And Jesus Christ promised them in Luke chapter 22, from verses 28 to 30, that they would occupy such positions in heaven. He told them, "Ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations. And I appoint unto you a kingdom, as my Father hath appointed unto me, that ye may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." See also Revelation chapter 1 and verses 5 and 6, and Psalms chapter 149 from verses 5 to 9. So those two rule together, and this was summarized in Isaiah chapter 32 verse 1. "Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and the princes shall rule in judgment." Jesus Christ is the king, and the apostles are the princes. They are the house of God. That's what it means by the mountain of the Lord's house, because they are considered a temple or house in the Bible, according to Ephesians chapter 2 from verses 19 to 22 and Hebrews chapter 3 verse 6, because of the significant role they play in God's everlasting plan for mankind, according to Ephesians chapter 1 verse 4 and many other places all over the scriptures. And when it says that the mountain of the Lord's house is going to be established like above everything else, above the top of the mountains, it's Satan's organization, which God's kingdom, essentially, according to Zechariah chapter 8 verse 3, will be exalted over. The Bible makes it clear that Jesus Christ at the moment is not the person who's controlling the whole world and all that. Satan, the devil, ultimately is the god of this world, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4, Matthew chapter 4 verses 8 and 9, and 1 John chapter 5 verse 19. But Jesus Christ has now come, and he's ruling in the midst of Satan's empire, and what he's doing is going to crush that. It's been exalted above all of that, and it's going to subdue everything that Satan the devil has established in thousands of years of human history, so that righteousness will prevail. And John the Apostle had seen this entire thing, the kingdom of God, fully established in a vision in Revelation chapter 21 from verses 1 to 5. In verse 1 it says, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. And the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea." And St. Peter spoke about this same thing in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 13, where he said, "Nevertheless we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness." Now when the verse says, "and all nations shall flow onto it," it's discussing how nobody can say, "No, I do not like this plan, and I'm going to do something else." Everybody will move in that direction. You saw how when God was ready to rescue Israel, he crushed all opposition. Everybody moved in the direction he wanted them to go, from when he delivered them straight to when they arrived at Canaan. The new world order, the spiritual new world order, which God has established and is now moving forward, is in that direction. All nations, peoples, ethnicities, cultures and traditions, etc., they'll all move in that direction until righteousness is established and the Jubilee commences. And that is where I'm going to stop on discussing that verse, Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2, which once again reads, "And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it." If you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell because we come out with new verse breakdowns from time to time. And if you have a verse kind of like this that you want us to explain, share it in the comment section below, and hopefully we'll make it soon in the future. Have a good day, and God bless you.